You are listening to Supplement Source, the official podcast of the Council for Responsible Nutrition. And now your host, Jeff Ventura.
Hello, and thank you for listening to Supplement Source. This is our first episode of 2026, and I thought it fitting to come out with a big announcement and also to have Steve Mister, our president and CEO, on our episode for 2026, our first episode. Steve, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here, especially with the good news that we have.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about today's big picture. Why does this moment matter? We're talking specifically about the Dietary Supplement Listing Act of 2026. Why is this possible now? I mean, I know that there's
Yeah, we're really excited. So, the big news today is that Senator Durbin from Illinois has announced that he is reintroducing this legislation that would create a supplement listing with FDA for the dietary supplement industry. And this is an issue that we've been very supportive of for a number of years. And I think it has some particular momentum behind it this year because I think, as many people know, Senator Durbin has announced that he will be retiring from the Senate at the end of the year. And this has long been a passion for him. And so I think that, there is a little maybe extra fire in the belly this year to try to make this happen. I mean, it would be a great legacy accomplishment for him before he retires. And we're more than happy to be a part of that conversation.
Let's talk about what this bill is and what this bill is not. So, because obviously there's concern in the industry whenever any new oversight is proposed. But can you walk us through what this bill actually requires and maybe just as importantly, what explicitly it does not do?
Right. Well, why don't I start with what it doesn't do? Because that's where a lot of the misinformation comes from. So this bill is not a pre-registration bill that gives FDA any kind of pre-market review or approval over dietary supplements. And I can't say that enough. This is not pre-market approval for supplements. That concept was very firmly enshrined in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act back in 1994 when Congress passed DSHEA, that these products did not need FDA pre-market clearance to get on the market. Unfortunately, since then, in the now 32 years since DSHEA passed, the market has exploded, which has been a wonderful thing for consumers to have all of these products that are available to them. But FDA has not been able to keep up with it because they have no way of knowing when a company brings a new product to market, whether it's an existing firm that brings a new product or whether it's a new disruptive brand coming out of nowhere that's suddenly out there with a new dietary supplement. FDA simply does not have a way to track that. So what does this bill do? This legislation would require that when a dietary supplement company brings a new product into the U.S. marketplace, that they give FDA a copy of that label and answer one or two questions about the company, like where it's headquartered and, a contact name so that they know who is putting that information into the registry. And what that does is that gives FDA some transparency into the market so that they know what ingredients and what products are out there. The legislation would also require that database be public facing, which means that now consumers and retailers would also have access to that. And they would be able to go and look at all of the labels for, say, a vitamin C product that's being sold in the US. Same thing with retailers. And that gives the industry a certain level of accountability to consumers and retailers as well, because now people know what they're selling and can make more informed decisions by going to this registry to see what products are out there and how they might compare with their others.
And is that accountability, do you think, linked to the transparency that something like this brings in the way of it being used as an enforcement tool by the FDA?
Well, yes, in some ways, because it will make enforcement easier for the agency when they know what they're up against. So, if there is a problem with a particular herbal ingredient and they start to see signals that there's a problem, they can go to this registry and they can find all of the companies that make or market that ingredient. And if they need to issue a recall or a warning around the ingredient, they know who to contact because now they know who makes the product.
A lot of the data that CRN has done in terms of the consumer survey, time and time again, has shown that there's an overwhelming support for this kind of transparency. And I think that the press release that we put out today talked a little bit about, it had a stat from Pew also. How do you think that this, I mean, do you think that this will further underscore or fortify, if you will, the trust that Americans already have in dietary supplements?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what is the sunshine is the best disinfectant, as a sort of an old adage. And so having more visibility into the industry is certainly going to give consumers more confidence in it. It's going to assure that we're not trying to hide products and selling them, in the corners of the internet and hoping that FDA doesn't find them. This says if you sell the product in the US market, you have to tell FDA that you're out there. So I think it absolutely increases consumer confidence. And another piece of this that I think we often miss is that retailers want to be able to know what's out there, and they would like to be able to curate what they put on the shelf. With this legislation, they could simply say to brands that come and want to get a spot on the shelf, we're not going to allow this product on the shelf of our store until you show us that you put it in the registry. And so that gives them kind of a bright line test to be sure that the vendors that are coming in, and doing the meetings and saying, put us on the shelf next to these big brands, it gives them some assurance that FDA knows the company is out there.
Yeah, we were already asked by a trade reporter about why there was a moment in time when a different version of this bill was proposed where we couldn't give it full-throated support, but now this particular version has changed. What has changed that elicited a more emphatic support from us?
Yeah, so there have been previous iterations of this legislation. It's been introduced in the last, I think, at least the last 3 Congresses. And previously, we've had some reservations because earlier versions of this bill would have required companies to provide FDA with all of the claims that they're making, not just on their labels, but if they're making claims on websites. So it really got much more into marketing, not just the label. As you can imagine, that's very cumbersome for companies because their websites and their social media accounts change. Claims get put up there and then they get taken down. And it's also beyond the jurisdiction of FDA to start getting into advertising. FDA's responsibility is around the product and the labeling, not some of the other kinds of marketing. So we get some real concerns from both the industry side of things and the FDA side of things. And what would FDA do with that amount of data that would be constantly coming into the agency? Would it just create clutter and noise, and rather than focusing them on what's on the label, which is their rightful responsibility to have oversight over the label? That is now gone from the legislation. It is specific to the label and giving FDA a copy of the label and whatever claims are being made on the label. And so that's the big thing. And then there is this other thing, Jeff, which is that we wanted to be sure there was adequate protection, that when companies gave information like somebody's contact information at the company who was uploading the labels, that was not going to be accessible to consumers who might file a FOIA request or something, and they would get information that way that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get. But that protection is in the legislation, as well as the larger issue, which is the narrowing it to the label.
This just doesn't seem like the requirement. I mean, not only does it not seem all that burdensome, but for the industry, but particularly for members of CRN. I mean, this is not something that they're necessarily not used to. I mean, the supplement owl, as an example, is something that it kind of emulates the sort of ethos of what this is. So, I mean, responsible companies like CRN's membership, this is probably doesn't represent it's good news is what I guess I'm saying, an extension of what they've already done.
Well, and I think you put your finger on a very important point, which is that 8 years ago we wanted to show sort of as a test model that this could be done relatively inexpensively and not terribly burdensome to the industry. And we created our own registry called the Supplement Owl, which is up there on the web now. Consumers can go to it. They do go and look up labels and products and things. And so we were able to demonstrate over the last 8 years that this is something that is not that hard for companies to keep up with, and that it works. So, it really is the beta test of a larger registry. The difference is right now, CRN members have to be in the Supplement Owl as part of their membership. And then other companies who want to be a part of it, we allow them to put their labels in. The legislation would make this industry-wide, and it would become, a requirement for everyone in the industry. But the Supplement Owl is certainly a great, example of how this can work.
Last question. If this passes, what do you think the market will be like 5 years after it passes? In other words, what will this mean for the consumer? Let's say 5 years on.
Well, I think the dread and doom that is being predicted by some of the people who have opposed this, it certainly will not come to be. I mean, this is not going to drive companies out of the marketplace. It's not going to hurt small business. So I think that is all misplaced. I think these horrible predictions about pre-market approval and all of that is an attempt to sort of, set up straw men that don't exist, because there really are no good arguments against this. So they're creating these, as obstacles to say, oh, it's pre-market review, because there really are no arguments against it. I think, and to answer your question down the road, I think you have a cleaner industry. I think some of the problems that we have now on some of the online platforms like Amazon, where you do have these kind of fly-by-night products that pop up and have questionable quality, potential for contaminants, things that shouldn't be there. I think that gets a lot better, because even Amazon can use this registry as a way to tell companies you can't be on the platform. There's a federal law that says that you have to be registered with FDA. You have to give them a copy of the label. If you haven't done that, you just can't be on the Amazon platform. So it gives retailers a way to clean up their own environments, even if FDA never enforced it, which I think they will. But even if FDA never enforced it, retailers can use it as a way to clean up the marketplace on their own. So I think the marketplace ends up getting cleaner with better products.
Well, thank you, Steve Mister, for explaining to us what this major dose of sunshine means on this cold winter's day. As always, we appreciate your perspective. Steve Mister, the CEO and president of CRN. We are delighted to have you on.
Before you let me go, Jeff, I just want to extend our thanks again to Senator Durbin for his leadership on this issue. We're really pleased to be working with him again.
Absolutely. Thanks for being on, Steve.